Hey friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, my name is Bianca, and I don't know why, but for some reason, I have had quite a number of people thinking that I've got my entire life together. But here's the truth. I am nowhere close to any of those productivity gurus that you see online. It's like when that camera is off, I got to admit that it's utter chaos 90% of the time. So like juggling between my day job, my side gigs, running YouTube, maintaining a social life, jiu-jitsu training, catering to my cat's every whim. Yeah, that's a lot. Oh, and don't get me started on laundry. And if you happen to relate to my lifestyle very much and feel immensely guilty about it, well, okay, here are my 2 cents. I somehow still hold this optimism that we aren't necessarily doomed. It just means that we need to tweak our approach towards time management. And in this video, I would like to share some of my personal go-to strategies on managing my chaotic self. Let's get right into it. First of all, timetables. They might work for some people, but definitely not for me. I suppose part of the reason is because timetables kind of demand some degree of robotic discipline, meaning to say that it sort of forces you to go from one task to another hour after hour. If I have to be honest, that level of continued discipline is just something I know I just don't have. And I used to just beat myself up again and again as I envied how some people seem to just be able to do things consistently every day without fail. But I suppose over time, I came to accept that falling behind doesn't necessarily equate to a shortfall in my commitment or desire to succeed. Rather, it is recognizing that maybe, just maybe, the system isn't crafted to suit my internal rhythm. And if I were to just blindly push myself, chances are that I will eventually crash and burn from exhaustion. So I decided to switch things up a little bit with these 2 principles. Numero uno, know your peak hours. We all have periods in the day when we are most productive. Instead of straight up resisting them, I simply decided to lean into those moments. In my case, I know for a fact that I'm more of a night owl, so I tend to get my creative projects done on those late night bursts of energy, and then following that, just let myself sleep in. Number 2, let your interests guide you. This is definitely not an original opinion, but I'm one of those people who holds the belief that you gotta be genuinely passionate about a certain task if you want to do really well in it. And because of that, I would say that I genuinely aim to work hard whenever I'm feeling inspired, and then switch tasks when I catch myself no longer feeling the same about it. Overall, the key objective here is to prioritize efficiency over brute effort. And hopefully when you plan your time well enough for it to align with your innate rhythms, productivity ought to become more of a dance as opposed to a struggle. Moving on in today's age, with apps, emails, phone calls, text messages, and a million other things just calling for our attention, it kind of sometimes feels like it's this overflowing closet that you and I know that we're too scared to open. But here's the thing, do we really need to address every single task every single day? Or have we sort of become a slave to it? And that's where I came to embrace what I would call the 3 task rule. So to run you through, I would typically start my day by making a full list of everything I need to do, whether it's meetings, chores, goals, like everything. Yes, even if it means listing down 50 things. Now, from that list, I would just pick 3 tasks, and the criteria for that, well, they should be the most impactful ones, in the sense that they are able to create ripples in your day, week, or maybe in a month's time. Now, within these 3 tasks, there is actually a sub-layer to it. Not all deadlines are written in stone, so that kind of forces me to think about which ones have real consequences if I miss them versus which ones that are a little bit more malleable. And the idea here is that this isn't procrastinating, but rather to be realistic. So if a task is on your list because of a self-imposed deadline, then I think it's important to consider renegotiating with yourself as to whether you might want to replace it with something that is truly urgent. Alright, so now that I've got my 3 tasks to go now, is to dive into the deep work. Since I've trimmed down my to-do list down to its core, I would then invest my entire energy, time, and focus into getting these 3 tasks done properly. Well, in other words, by concentrating on these few tasks, it gives me this unique gift of truly immersive focus. And at the end of the day, I will reflect. I suppose it's a lot about asking myself, okay, so did you manage to finish what you're supposed to do? If yes, cool, give yourself a pat on the back. If not, well, don't beat yourself up. Just think about what held you back and try to readjust it for the next day. Over time, I think this practice helped me a lot in gauging which tasks actually deserve the spotlight. In general, I guess I really like this 3 task rule just because of how simple it is. Maybe I'm just a really pragmatic person, but I really appreciate how it forces you to cut through the noise and make sure that you're being genuinely productive as opposed to appearing busy. And weirdly enough, there's this deep sense of satisfaction that comes along with you knowing that you've zeroed in on what truly matters and gave it your all. Now, to bring you back to my good old uni days, I have this friend who studied chemical engineering at Imperial College London. Well, if you know, you know. I have yet to have met a chemistry student who hasn't complained to me about the course being synonymous to intense exams, a lot of group projects, problem sheets, as well as stress levels that are way off the charts. But not as tough as biochemistry. And given that kind of academic madness, because honestly, Imperial College can be a bit of a madhouse, well, in terms of workload. You would think that my friend would be constantly buried under past year papers or working herself to death in the library, right? Turns out that no matter what, there will be a time where she just ditched all her problem sheets, put on her climbing shoes, and then head out for bouldering 3 times a week. And for me, back then, it was probably one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my entire life because why? Why, Vanessa? You have 2 days to your final exam that weighs like 1/3 of your second year. Why are you doing this to yourself? Interestingly, she eventually explained that this practice actually gave her something to look forward to every other day. In other words, bouldering wasn't actually a way for her to escape work. As a matter of fact, it's actually her lifeline amidst all the chaos. So the point I'm trying to make here is that no matter how demanding your routine is, it's actually pretty imperative to have these personal delights. With that in mind, try to identify your personal fun factor. It can be, well, anything, as long as it brings you a sense of joy and calmness. And once you discover it, prioritize it. As in, make it part of your routine. Because whether we realize it or not, these activities, no matter how simple they may sound, are actually much needed fuels for our souls. Now, does it have to be something sports related like bouldering? Nah. You could literally be like my brother in the sense that every Wednesday is his junk food day, meaning to say that he would treat himself to McDonald's just to reward himself for surviving the first half of the week. Now, before we wrap up, I would just like to make it clear that I am not advocating for everyone to throw all forms of discipline out of the window. We all have our responsibilities and commitments, especially if you happen to be an employee or are raising a family. What I'm suggesting here is for us to consider leaning into passion and flexibility wherever possible. And the idea here is to strike a balance that is tailored to your situation. It's all about optimizing for passion while we still respect the realities of our commitments. Having said that, thank you so much for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, please consider hitting the like, subscribe, and bell icon because it honestly really helps to support my channel. And if you happen to be a student trying to figure out how to score the best grades possible, well, my friend and I have made a video compiling all the study tips and advice on how you can do so. Do check it out if you can, and I shall see you in my next video. Bye bye!